man, no offense, but I figured for an attorney general who spends all day in court suing Joe Biden that maybe you couldn't handle a gun very well, but you shot the AR pretty good.
Hey, Aaron, look, I love throwing lead downrange, man. I spent a lot of time in the Army at gun ranges, spent a lot of time growing up at gun ranges, so, and my kids and I still go out and shoot at our place.
I mean, that's real mud back there. There's no green screens, there's no nothing. Yeah. That's like legit.
Yeah.
So.
I love the smell of gunpowder in the morning.
So you mentioned your background. A lot of folks probably just don't know a lot about your background. You've been the Attorney General now for 18 months, but a lot of folks don't know your backstory. Just if you don't mind, take a moment. What's your story? Where are you from? Married, kids?
Yeah.
What'd you do before you were the Attorney General? What's your backstory?
Yeah, man. Grew up in Missouri. I grew up in Columbia, Missouri, and went to Mizzou on an Army ROTC scholarship in 1999. Planned on going to law school. 9/11 happened. Volunteered for a combat arms branch of service in the Army, so I was trained on tanks and shooting the 120 millimeter main gun, having that going off, right here next to your head is one of the coolest weapon systems I've been able to fire.
A little bit bigger than that rifle.
A little bit, but yeah, I mean, I like an M4, like a 5.56 too, but I volunteered to go to Iraq. I was an armored cavalry scout platoon leader. So I actually I had 6 Bradley fighting vehicles, 30 soldiers, usually 2 platoons of Iraqis as well. So we were living in tents up in the Nineveh province and secured the Syrian border, secured the province we were in for the constitutional referendum, and then participated in the largest offensive operation of 2005. So, I spent about half my time in the turret directing the dismounts on the ground and spent half the time in a stack, kicking indoors, clearing buildings, and came home. They moved my unit to Fort Hood, Texas. We drew all new equipment, all new soldiers trained, went right back to Iraq as part of the surge. Second deployment, 15 months long. At one point, I was a troop commander, had 300 soldiers, 13 platoons, about $100 million worth of equipment that I was responsible for.
Did that come back, or did Biden leave that stuff there?
Yeah, no, we brought it home with this. Things changed. Yeah, no, that certainly has changed since Biden took over. But yeah, moved back to Missouri, and I actually lived in the city of St. Louis, and I wanted to move home. I wanted to come back to Missouri.
Sure.
And I was going to go from the Army to law school, but there's about a year break. So I moved to the city of St. Louis, and I worked as an armed guard at the Family Court Juvenile Division in North St. Louis. So went from commanding 13 platoons in combat to wearing a .38 revolver and working the front door.
No tank?
Yeah, well, they wouldn't give me a bulletproof vest, so I'd been on the job for 6 months. So I felt safer sometimes, in Iraq. But went back to Mizzou on the post 9/11 GI Bill. Only ever wanted to be a prosecuting attorney. And so I lived out in Warren County, Missouri, and was an assistant prosecutor. I married a gal from Texas that I'd met when I was in the Army down there. And we ended up adopting kiddos, and I couldn't afford to be an assistant prosecutor anymore. So we went from no kids to 2 kids overnight, and then added a 3rd kid. And so I went to work at Missouri Department of Corrections. And then that's how I got back in the state government. Just happened to be in the right place at the right time when Eric Schmidt was elected to the United States Senate.
Yeah.
And feel blessed to have the opportunity to lead the AG's office.
That's fantastic. I was telling my kids we're going to have the Attorney General here at the gun range for this interview. One of my younger sons is asking, he's like, what is the Attorney General? He's pretty young yet. He's like, what does the Attorney General actually do? So I spent 10 minutes, probably got way too detailed, and I'm like, he gets to do this, and he gets to do this, and he gets to this. He's like, so at the end, he said, what you're saying is he gets to sue Joe Biden, right? So I'm like, what's that like? Like every day you wake up, you have a bowl of Wheaties, you go and file a lawsuit against Joe Biden. Like, what's it like in that position?
Yeah, that's about right, man. Look, this is a lawless regime who is hell-bent on destroying the United States of America. And they're going to do it by flooding this country with illegal aliens, by perverting our children, by passing rules that they can't get through Congress, that undermines our constitutional structure, which ends up taking away our freedoms. They're going to strip states of their authority, and they're going to rig an election through lawfare that's injecting poison into our democratic process by trying to take President Trump off the campaign trail and convict him when there's no facts or law to support any criminal conviction there at all. And so we are using every weapon in our arsenal to fight back against that nonsense.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch as a Missourian. See, it's just like every day is like combat between some attorney general, in this case you, and this White House. I think it kind of seems like 20 years ago in the gun rights community, it didn't seem to matter as much. Maybe I'm sure it always did, but it just didn't seem to matter as much who the attorney general was because we didn't have a madman in the White House. Let's just be honest. And I think these days everyone's realized that with a president who bypasses Congress, so you can't stop him in Congress right now.
Yeah.
A lot of times, the AG's office has become kind of the frontline combatant in this war to stop Biden from crushing our gun rights.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, I view it this way: the rights in the Constitution come from God, not man. And the Constitution
Amen.
exists to protect us from the government, and the government is supposed to exist to protect our rights. But what's happening with the Biden administration and some of the blue cities as well is that we see it most in the national media from the lawless Biden administration, but it happens in blue cities as well, is that they reject all of that, and then they think that the government exists as an end unto itself, and you're a means to the government's end.
Exactly.
And they have to take your rights away and get you addicted to the government in order to support that machinery, and that machinery gobbles up freedom. And so fighting back, using the law to fight back against that is what I'm all about and what we do at the AG's office.
So let's discuss that in some detail. So you've been there for over a year and a half now, and there's been an awful lot of Second Amendment stuff you've had to deal with, both here in Missouri, and then also protecting Missouri from this out of control White House. Yeah. The big one always is the Second Amendment Preservation Act, the SAPA law. This is a top tier item for the Missouri Firearms Coalition. We passed it in 2021. For those who don't remember what SAPA says, it tells Joe Biden, you can't use Missouri cops, our budget, our resources, our infrastructure. You can't use Missouri to enforce federal tyrannical gun control laws. If you want to do it, have your own manpower do it. You can't come into Missouri and take our manpower to get it done. And we knew when we passed this that Biden was going to flip. Yeah. Because he's always counted on, every president, frankly, counts on local resources to implement their agenda. A lot of times that serves Missouri's interests, but not when it comes to advancing Biden's gun control agenda. Biden hates it. He's sued. We're in court right now. Where are we at right now today with the Second Amendment Preservation Act in court here in Missouri?
Yeah, Aaron, look, I'm going to stand up and always fight to defend the Second Amendment Preservation Act. This is the most important model legislation for the rest of this country. Not only does it protect our Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, which shall not be infringed. Article 1, Section 23 of the Missouri Constitution says that the state has a moral obligation and a legal duty to stand up and protect those rights. But it's also a codification of the 10th Amendment anti-commandeering,
100%,
which is exactly what you said. And I think it's important to remember that. So the Department of Justice sued us. The Department of Justice was so put out that our General Assembly, our people's elected representatives, had passed this statute that Biden's Department of Justice sued us. And I'm defending Missourians and our constitutional rights from Biden's legal attack against us. We're on appeal right now at the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals in front of a 3-judge panel, and I'm confident in our ultimate success and victory, and I'll tell you why. Standing. The Biden administration can't show how they're harmed. It doesn't limit them at all. It limits us and says, you're not going to take from us, which, again, is already in the United States Constitution.
Yep.
So I do think we'll get a win there. And look, at the end of the day, this thing's going to the United States Supreme Court, and we'll take it all the way, and we will fight and win to protect.
I think you're right, because if when Missouri wins at the 8th, the DOJ is going to appeal.
Yeah.
They have no choice, right? And as long as Biden's still in the White House, and if for some reason we don't pass the initial test there, your office will appeal it yourself, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that the Supreme Court is looking for an opportunity to not only curtail this kind of federal overreach, but to reinvigorate a system of federalism.
Yes.
Where the states retain that authority under the 10th Amendment. And so I think this is a prime opportunity to make that happen.
So you mentioned the Supreme Court. There's been some talk on social media here in Missouri. I think some of those people who are just not sure what's going on. Some might be more intentionally malicious, trying to confuse people. They're saying that Supreme Court has already ruled on SAPA, and they have found it to be unconstitutional. What's the deal with that?
No, anyone that's saying that is lying. This case is still pending at the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. And so we're going to continue to fight to make sure this is the law of the state of Missouri, and we'll take it all the way to the United States Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court has not ruled on the merits of this case. It hasn't been up there for review on the merits of the case yet.
Right. Well, fantastic. So that's a big one for our members. Another big one is the gun you were shooting with me just a little bit ago with that pistol brace. Yeah. Don't tell Joe Biden we have a pistol brace. The pistol brace issue is a big deal because it's kind of a symptom, or it's an expression of Biden's lawlessness. He did not ban pistol braces by going to Congress. There wasn't a hearing on this bill. There was no committees. There's no votes. He simply grabs his pen and he signs an executive order, and he tells the ATF to regulate a pistol brace like it's an NFA item. And you didn't like that very much, and you guys sued him. And what's the status on that?
Yeah, we won that lawsuit, and we led a coalition of other states to make sure that we were maximizing the force and effect of all of the states that believe in the Second Amendment. Look, Article 1, Section 23 of the Missouri Constitution, again, it protects not only the right to keep and bear arms, but ammunition and accessories as well. And again, it is my legal and moral duty to protect and defend those things. And it's something I accept willingly and vehemently. at the end of the day, there's no sanction in the United States Constitution for an unelected fourth branch of government. And to your point,
Exactly.
the people's elected representatives get a say in the matter. Now, I would submit to you that it was never going to be legal to ban pistol braces, but
Right.
it's certainly not legal when Biden's trying to do it through an administrative rule and a bureaucratic process without any say-so from the people. Proud that we fought and win to protect that.
I mean, that was a big deal because even the government accounting office said there was 10 to 40 million pistol braces in circulation. So, I mean, if every gun owner has 2 of them, it's just there's 20 million Americans who one day it's legal.
Yeah.
And the next day, either it's registered with the state or with the government or you're a felon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally an instant felony for gun owners who simply have owned what was legal for all these years up until this time. So getting that victory had to be a big one.
It's huge. It's huge. And it's like a lot of legal problems here. Number one, again, Biden just going around Congress to try to make his own laws,
Yep.
which has no authority to do, which again undermines our freedoms. But again, it's that ex post facto component.
Yes.
He can write a law that looks back at behavior that is ongoing, that didn't used to be illegal, and make it illegal. We were going to let that happen on our watch. Again, I'm proud of the win on that issue and being able to protect our right to keep and own pistol braces.
The absurdity of this, and for those who haven't had a chance to get around a pistol brace, I was there in the Judiciary Committee hearing with Steve Dettelbach a year ago in D.C., and Congressman Massey holds up a pistol brace, and he holds up a buttstock from a rifle. And of course, as a gun guy, they're virtually identical.
Yeah,
And so he's sitting up there, and he's asking Dettelbach, Mr. Dettelbach, you're the director of the ATF. Can you tell me which one of these is a felony and which one of these is okay? And, of course, Steve does his, I'm not a firearms expert. So that lack of clarity alone, the ambiguity there, it was going to ensnare so many people. So getting that victory was a big deal. Another example of Biden going off the rails and just, again, dictating gun control by executive fiat is a more recent thing where he's redefined what a firearms dealer was.
Yeah.
Previously, you had to have, there's kind of a 2-pronged test. You had to show income from selling guns and had to be the primary source of your personal income. That's how they defined what a firearms dealer was. And if that's the case, you get an FFL, the guns are all run through the system, NICS checks, the whole 9 yards. But if you've ever been to a gun show, everyone knows that a lot of guys at a gun show, in fact, maybe even half at a gun show, are older guys who are kind of winding down their affairs, and their wife's been yelling at them for 20 years to get rid of some of those extra guns, and they're selling their private collection. They're not dealers. They don't make an income from this. It's not their primary income. And Biden just says all of a sudden, boom, this is a redefinition. You're now a dealer. You have to go through the NICS check process, or you're facing felonies as well. What'd you guys do about that?
Yeah, we filed a lawsuit, and we're going to win that lawsuit, Aaron. And I remember you and I talked because we saw this happen.
Yeah.
And you called and we're like, hey, what are we going to do? I'm like, dude, I'm already on it. I'm going to file a lawsuit.
True. I remember that.
Because at the end of the day, what Biden wants to do is he wants to eliminate person-to-person sales so that he can institute a gun registry.
Yes.
And historically, 100% of the time you get a gun registry, you end up in confiscation.
Yep.
So we have to fight this fight now to prevent that, or we will slouch towards tyranny. And so, I think about the Founding Fathers, and I guarantee you they would have understood that person-to-person sales of firearms to be a legitimate exercise of our constitutional rights under the Second Amendment, because George Washington bought guns, and he didn't go to a gun store. There wasn't a gun store in 1776. Thomas Jefferson owned firearms, and he didn't go to a gun store through some kind of dealer. He went to an open-air market and did a person-to-person transaction. And
exactly.
So these are constitutional rights that are protected, and it's not just like it's not. I hate it when people call it a loophole. They're like, oh, we got to close the gun show loophole. It's not a loophole if it's carved out in an intentional manner.
I think you're right. He is pissed off that he can't pass universal background checks in Congress. And so he bypasses Congress. This is what kings do. This is what tyrants do. Bypass the elected representatives, whether it's at the state level, in this case, the federal level, and they dictate gun control by fiat. Great lawsuit. Any timeline here? Any guess on what you're expecting to see from a turnaround time here?
Yeah, look, we've asked for an immediate injunction on that, and so hopefully the district court will give us a good ruling. We'll be able to come back and celebrate a win there. I'm confident in our ultimate success on the merits.
That's going to be a fun one. Turning more locally here to Missouri, a while back, was it 6 months ago-ish, we have one of your professional colleagues, New York Attorney General Letitia James. I'm sure you guys are.
Yeah, please.
You're texting buddies.
Yeah, please don't include me with her. She's awful.
I mean, so you have a blue state attorney general sends a letter to Joe Biden, and she says, and she has 20, 21, 22 other attorneys general from blue states on the letter, and she says, Lake City Ammo, Independence, Missouri, Lake City Ammo, they sell ammo to the government, and they also sell it to the civilian market. And Letitia James, says that should be shut down. And she asked Joe Biden to use the power of the executive office and their federal contracts and all their different bureaucratic processes to order a Missouri company to stop selling ammo to citizens. We were shooting Lake City's finest just a little bit ago on the range. It's good stuff.
It is.
They, of course, say that only mass shooters and stuff are the ones using this. You guys got involved in that pretty hot and heavy. What's the status on that? What'd you guys do?
We put a stop to it. We put them on notice that to breach the contract with Olin Winchester was a deprivation of Olin Winchester's due process rights, that it would harm the people of the state of Missouri, not only by taking jobs away from working Missouri families in the Kansas City area, but at the end of the day, this is a really an evolving battlefield.
Yeah.
So what you see is that the left realizes they can't come take your gun. They can't eliminate an individual right to keep and bear arms. That's been decided by the United States Supreme Court. So now you see them trying to outflank this issue with administrative rules and then through market manipulation.
Yes.
And that's that new front that Lake City represents, is that blue states say, look, if we can eliminate the profit that Olin Winchester receives from the civilian sales, we can draw down the supply in the civilian market, drive up the cost, and that harms you and me, the average shooter. And so protecting the marketplace for ammunition, firearms, and firearms accessories is a new front in this war. Proud that Missouri led on this issue, not only to protect Missourians' jobs, but to protect our right to have access to ammunition.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a simple thing. If we can't have ammo, our guns don't matter. Those are nice rifles there, but with no bullets, it doesn't matter what we've got. And they seem to clearly identify that as a way to crack down on gun rights. I think what's really cool in that one was when you engage there, it wasn't just your office, which is more than sufficient for a Missouri problem, but you brought in with 27, 28 red state attorneys general. There's definitely a factor here where Missouri is leading in this in the legal fight to defend our gun rights, the way it seems. Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I get on the horn with my colleagues all the time and tell them, hey, I got an issue. I need you guys to rally behind me. And they understand too, like what happens in Missouri is going to impact their folks as well. And if we don't fight the fight here and draw that line in the sand, we will all lose. We will stand or fall together. So proud to be leading that.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall, honestly, at Merrick Garland's office sometimes. And he's like, we lost bump stocks. We lost pistol braces. The states are passing SAPA. Now we can't even ban ammo sales. Like, we're losing everywhere. It's just, there's been a lot of problems over the last 4 years with Joe Biden, a lot of damage to our country. When it comes to gun rights, we keep seeming to have these wins. I would love to hear how Merrick Garland he's got to hate your guts.
Oh, I'm sure he does. If they don't have a dartboard with my face on it yet, they probably will after we beat him on SAPA. But look, at the end of the day, these people hate freedom.
100%.
They do not want us to enjoy the rights that are given to us by God and enshrined in our United States Constitution. And I fought to defend the Constitution. I was willing to put my life on the line to do it. Took that fight to the enemies of freedom in the battlefield of the war on terror. Proud to be leading that fight now in courtrooms across the state and country.
So the next administrative attack on our gun rights is very recent. This is just in the last, 2-3 weeks now, where Biden now has put new limitations via the Commerce Department on how Americans can export firearms and ammunition. It's just one more attempt where bypass the Congress, grab the tyranny pen, sign an order, make it happen. What's the situation there? What have you guys done about that?
So we sent them a notice of intent to sue. We have attorneys that monitor the federal registry, and that's where agencies, this alphabet soup of tyrannical bureaucrats, have to file their proposed rules so that we have visibility on them before they go into effect under the Administrative Procedures Act. So we monitor that to see what's coming down the pipe. And we saw this attempt by the Commerce Department again, and this is a market manipulation. They want to limit your ability to make profit importing or exporting firearms and thus drive up the cost so that there are fewer market participants and that you and I can't afford guns anymore. And I'm not going to let that happen, especially not through some illegal administrative act. And it really, the timing of it hit perfectly because about the time we had to send our intent to put them on notice that we would sue them over this, the Supreme Court handed down its decision overturning the Chevron case.
Yes.
Your folks will know this well. Since the 1980s, the federal judiciary has basically deferred to these federal bureaucrats and said, yeah, whatever you guys want to do, tie goes to the runner.
Right.
You guys we will defer to your interpretation of your own authority. No way. We have three co-equal branches of government. The founders understood that diffusing power over three co-equal branches of government with checks and balances was essential to liberty and freedom. And so now there's no Chevron. We identified that for the agency and said, do not pass this rule. Tie does not go to the runner anymore.
Right.
Tie goes to freedom. And so we put them on the notice that we would absolutely sue them if they attempt to limit our ability to import and export firearms.
Yeah, it's just one more way to control the gun market on both sides of the spectrum here. So that has to be dealt with. That's a great suit in waiting. We'll see what happens. I guess that thing. Well, I guess a lot of it comes down to what these agencies do in part when Joe Biden boot stomps. I'm sorry, I've had that backwards. When Trump,
don't say that, man.
When Trump boot stomps Joe Biden in November, hopefully a lot of these things will solve themselves. But even when that happens, isn't it kind of true that from a precedential standpoint, we need to finish these fights? You guys have to in court to get that victory and solve this problem for forever.
Yeah, that's right. At the end of the day, getting a sound ruling from the court so we have the imprimatur of the judiciary saying this is legal, that is good because it's predictable and consistent moving forward.
Right.
I would also say that when President Trump wins and ends Biden's lawless regime, tyrannical regime, there's still going to be fights ahead of us because we're still going to have Kansas City and St. Louis with radical progressives in charge that hate freedom as much as Joe Biden does.
100%. I was going to ask you about that. So was it 6 months ago, 8 months ago, Tashara Jones, the mayor of St. Louis, comes out and she has this huge presser and she says that if we can't pass gun control in Jeff City, that's a huge compliment to all you guys, members of the Missouri Firearms Coalition, then we're going to, by gosh, take an executive order of our own, a city ordinance, and we're going to ban ARs. We're going to ban 30-round mag. I don't think she'd like any of the crap we've got here.
She's having a nightmare.
All these ARs. I don't think she'd like any of it. They're going to pass all their own gun control locally, but Missouri has a preemption status, and it clearly states that the cities may not enact gun control that goes beyond where the General Assembly has already gone. What do you guys do about that?
Cease and desist letter, and we got them to back down. That's a huge win for freedom-loving individuals in the city of St. Louis. There may not be many, but we got to protect everybody's rights. And look, you've got a radical progressive that, again, hates freedom. She didn't pay attention to Article 1, Section 23 of the Missouri Constitution, which preempts local control and says that any measure that anyone tries to enact, whether it be the General Assembly of the state of Missouri or a local official, is subject to strict scrutiny. You got to show a compelling interest if you're going to come after our rights. And there's no compelling interest based solely on the aesthetic value of firearms. This looks scary, so I want to ban it.
Right.
No way. Not on my watch.
But the only way to stop her, though, is with your office. And so that's one of the problems we have is our members say, well, can we change the law in Jeff City? And maybe we can put some teeth in the preemption law. That could be a thing for down the road. But it takes a legal action to put these people in check, whether it's Joe Biden, whether it's Tashara Jones, or the agencies. That's the real problem, the bureaucratic processes that they've weaponized against gun owners. It's been a hell of a ride watching you guys just like I say, every day you wake up, you got eat your Wheaties and go file a suit. And I think what's so cool for our members, too, I mentioned this once before, is just, like I say, it's not just your office. It's Bailey's office plus 28. It's Bailey's office plus 21. It's leading a national movement. Your job is to safeguard Missouri, and you're doing that. But along the way, the fringe benefit is that all of Red America is now surging to this fight.
Yeah, man, it's really cool to be leading on so many of these issues. And for Missouri to be at the top of the pile on so much of this stuff when it comes to Second Amendment rights and, fighting back against federal overreach, leading the effort, kind of, again, adapting to this evolving battlefield and to stop even other blue states from manipulating the marketplace when it comes to firearms, ammunition, and accessories.
Man, it's been a lot of fun. You ready to shoot some more?
Let's do it, man.
Let's get going.